My name is Adriana Cole. I'm 32 years old, and for the last 3 years, I've been in a relationship with a man I thought I knew better than anyone, Marcus. The clink of my fork against the porcelain plate was deafening in the muted hush of the restaurant. It was a familiar place, our regular Tuesday spot, though. Tonight it felt more like a stage. Marcus sat across from me, head bowed, his thumb flicking across the glowing screen beneath the table, as if our dinner was an inconvenient interruption. Big news at work, I asked, forcing a brightness I didn't feel. My voice was neutral, practiced neutral. Neutral had become my armor these past 2 months. He didn't look up, something like that. The words dropped between us like stones. His tone was light, almost careless, but his posture told a different story. Marcus was dressed as if he were stepping into a magazine shoot. Sleek black shirt, new blazer, polished shoes. Not the casual ease of a man grabbing dinner with his long-term girlfriend. I'd complimented him when I picked him up, but he'd just smirked and said, "A man has to make an effort sometimes, Adriana." The way he said it like I rarely did. My eyes wandered over him, over the way his jaw tightened as his gaze swept the room. Not once did it settle on me. I used to feel like I was the axis his eyes revolved around. Tonight, I was the forgotten corner of the universe. "The salmon's good," I offered a fragile olive branch. He placed his phone face down on the linen tablecloth deliberately, as though it cost him something, and finally met my gaze. His eyes, a shade of brown, I once thought warm enough to sink into, scanned me with cool disinterest. "It's fine," he said, slicing into the fish with surgical precision. "A bit overdone, honestly. Not as good as last time." I froze. Last time we had never ordered salmon here before. A tiny fissure opened in my chest. Did he even notice? Did he care? I let it go. Letting things go had become my silent occupation. "Marcus," I said softly, my fork poised mid-air. "Is everything okay?" "Really?" He sighed. That sigh. The one I knew too well, the one that prefaced lectures about how I was being too sensitive or needy. "Everything's fine. Work's intense, that's all. You wouldn't understand the pressure." There it was, the condescension dressed as explanation, the pat on the head. You, Adriana, with your little design studio and your cozy clients couldn't possibly comprehend the high-stakes world I inhabit. I wanted to argue my agency was successful, my deadlines as real as his, but pointing that out had only ever earned me longer sighs and cooler silences. "Right," I murmured, swallowing the dry bite of fish. It might as well have been ash. The rest of the meal was a blur of brittle small-talk words, snapping and shattering with each exchange. I paid the bill, another silent ritual, and we walked back to the car. He strode a half step ahead, shoulders squared, posture rigid. I trailed behind, watching the space between us stretch wider with every step. I didn't feel like a partner walking beside him. I felt like a chauffeur escorting a stranger to a hotel. And deep down beneath the practiced calm, beneath the brittle pleasantries, a thought crystallized. The connection was gone. The salmon wasn't just overdone. It was the first clear sign that something inside us had already burned. A week later, the silence in my apartment felt heavy like an extra body occupying the space. I was sketching at my desk lines, turning into shapes, turning into something resembling wings when the lock clicked. Marcus still had his key, though he hadn't used it in weeks. My heart leapt before I could stop it. Foolish hope pulsing through me. Maybe he'd come to bridge the gap. "Hey," I said, sliding the sketchbook aside. He stepped inside. Cheeks flushed, eyes, bright coat still on. He didn't sink onto the couch like he used to. He stood in the middle of the room, posture stiff, like a real estate agent about to pitch a listing. "We need to talk." Those 4 words hit like a blow to the chest. I knew instantly. Somewhere I had known since the salmon. "Okay," I said, my voice steady, even as my fingers curled into my palms. He inhaled deeply, not the shaky breath of nerves, but the controlled breath of someone about to deliver a memorized speech. "I've met someone." The words hung there cold and precise. Her name slid out of his mouth like something precious, Nancy. "She's a partner at a venture capital firm." His eyes flickered as he spoke not toward me, but upward, as if already living in the luxury of Nancy's world. "She's incredible, Adriana. The things she's done, the life she leads." His mouth curved in awe. "She has a jet, a private jet." I stared at him. My brain tripped over the absurdity. A jet? He was leaving me for a woman with a jet. So I managed my voice thick. "That's it. 3 years, and you're leaving because she owns a plane." A flicker of irritation crossed his face. "Don't be reductive. It's not about the jet. It's about what it represents: ambition, drive a life without limits. His gaze swept across my apartment, the framed prints, the soft throw over the couch, my sketchbook left open on the desk. His lip twitched. You're comfortable. You're my anchor. But Nancy, she's an upgrade. The words sliced clean through me. Upgrade. I was a piece of software version 1.0, and he'd found the sleeker model. I see. The words fell flat from my lips. What else could I say when the man I loved had just ranked me obsolete? He mistook my silence for acceptance. His posture softened. A patronizing smile bloomed on his lips, the kind you give a child for finally grasping a hard lesson. Look, he continued, voice lowering, as if confiding a secret. Don't take this the wrong way. You're a great woman. You're kind. You're stable. You're my safety net. The phrase hit harder than upgrade. My safety net. Not a partner, not a love, a tool. He tilted his head, generosity dripping from every word. If things don't work out with her, you'll take me back, right? I mean, it's us. What we have is real. It's just on pause. I looked at him. Really looked. The man I'd loved, the one I'd imagined building a life with, was gone. In his place stood a stranger who calmly slotted me into the role of backup plan. Anger surged, betrayal clawed. Grief howled, yet on the surface, calm settled over me, like frost. I think you should leave now, I said, my voice quiet, almost gentle. For a moment he faltered, as if he'd expected an argument, a plea, or worse, my blind acquiescence. Then he recovered, smile tightening. Okay, if that's how you want to be. You need time to process. I get it. He turned and walked out of my apartment without a backward glance. The door clicked shut. In the echoing silence, I stood rooted, staring at the sketchbook where wings had begun to take form. The storm inside me twisted, then cooled into something sharp, crystalline, undeniable. I wasn't just heartbroken. I had been demoted, and that truth was going to change everything. The apartment was silent after Marcus left, but it wasn't empty. It was heavy, dense, as if the air itself had thickened with his absence. I sat on the couch for a long while, staring at the sketchbook, still lying open on the floor. The unfinished drawing of wings stared back at me, a reminder that while Marcus was soaring toward his shiny new life, I was expected to remain tethered. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. What settled over me was colder, sharper, cleaner. It was clarity. I stood, my movements mechanical, and walked to the hall closet, pulled out a medium-sized moving box. One would be enough. The bathroom came first. His cologne, the bottle nearly empty. A shaving kit. Half-used moisturizers. I dropped them into the box without ceremony. Each thud was final, like a gavel strike. In the bedroom, I stripped his presents piece by piece. The novels he never finished piled on the nightstand. A sweatshirt he'd left draped over my chair. A tangle of cords he always swore he'd organize. Into the box they went. Then the photo. Colorado. Him with his arm around me, both of us grinning at the camera like we'd captured the sun. I pulled it from the frame. For a moment I hovered. The easy thing would be to rip it, shred the memory into confetti. But no, that kind of destruction belonged to rage. I placed the photo face down, as if tucking away a relic from a museum exhibit that had closed forever. The tape ripped across cardboard with a shrill, satisfying finality. I carried the box downstairs to the building's mailroom and left it with the outgoing packages. Back upstairs, I typed a single message. Your things are in the mailroom. Sent. No greeting, no sign-off, no invitation to reply. Then I blocked his number. Social media accounts too, one after another, click, click, click. In less than a minute, he was erased. The apartment was different now. Not haunted, not empty, just mine. I drifted back to my desk, opened my laptop. For years, Marcus and I had talked about Bali. Someday, we said. We'd even saved together our future fund, earmarked for a house, a marriage, a life entwined. But that future was gone. What was left wasn't our money. It was mine. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then they flew. Search bar flights to Denpasar, Bali. One way. The date popped up exactly 1 month from today. A clean cycle. Long enough to close one chapter, short enough not to waver. I clicked through the options, chose a seat without hesitation. The price gouged a hole in the future fund, but instead of guilt, I felt release. Liberation. The confirmation email pinged into my inbox, the words glowing like a beacon, booking confirmed. I leaned back, staring at the screen. In the space of a few hours, Marcus had walked out, and I had erased him, boxed up his life, and charted a course for mine. No triumphant grin, no fist pump, just a quiet hum of forward motion, steady and resolute. My eyes wandered around the apartment again. Without his belongings, without his shadow, it looked different, lighter, airier. I inhaled deeply. For the first time in months, the scent wasn't him. It was just wood and dust and me. And for the first time in months, that was more than enough. 3 weeks passed. The silence I'd expected to ache had instead crystallized into something solid, something almost beautiful. Every day I went to work, met with clients, hit the gym, came home. The diamond in my chest, cold, unyielding, gleamed brighter each time I thought of Bali. Then, one afternoon, standing in line for coffee, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message preview blinked up at me. Adriana, it's Marcus. I know you probably still feel upset, but blocking me was childish. Nancy is amazing, by the way. We're in Monaco. Hope you're doing well. I stared at the screen, a strange trickle running down my spine. Not pain, not jealousy, something closer to amusement. The audacity. It was a classic test, a pebble tossed into the well to see if the water still rippled. He wanted to provoke me, to remind me of what I'd lost, to see if the net was still strung tight beneath his fall. I snapped a screenshot, then saved the number under a new contact, do not answer. And then without hesitation, I blocked it. No sting, no second guessing, just silence again. A silence that was no longer empty, but strong like reinforced glass. I slid my phone back into my bag as the barista called my name. Latte for Adriana. I picked it up, steam curling into the air, and took the first sip. Bitter hot grounding. He thought he could still dictate my role in his story. He thought I was standing by costume, pressed, ready to step back on stage if his leading lady faltered. But the pebble had fallen on dry earth. There was no water here anymore. Just me. And I was already charting my own horizon. Another 3 weeks slipped by. My Bali departure was now marked boldly on the calendar suitcase already open on the bed, half packed with light dresses and sketchbooks. Each folded shirt felt like a promise. That night, as I tucked sandals into the side pocket, my phone buzzed. A voicemail notification. Another unknown number. For a moment, I considered deleting it without listening. But curiosity, the kind you feel when you know the car crash is already over yet, still glanced at the wreckage, won. I pressed play. Adriana, please pick up. It's me. It's Marcus. His voice was raw, thick with something I'd never heard in him before: humiliation. Nancy, she wasn't who I thought she was. She just wanted someone for the spotlight, and then she dumped me. In Monaco. His voice cracked low and trembling. I had to pay my own flight home. God, it was humiliating. I think I made a terrible mistake. Can we please talk? I need you. You're the only one I can call. The message ended with ragged breaths. I stood by the bed, t-shirt still in my hands, listening to the silence after his plea. A younger version of me would have melted at the sound. She would have rushed to him, heart aching, eager to soothe and fix, to reclaim the boy she loved. But that woman no longer lived here. I deleted the voicemail. No hesitation. Blocked the number before it could even cool in my call history. His mistake, his consequence, not my emergency. I slipped the t-shirt into my suitcase and zipped it shut. The sound was crisp, decisive. The suitcase wasn't just luggage, it was a boundary, and I intended to keep it. The day before my flight, the apartment gleamed. I'd scrubbed every surface, not out of anxiety, but out of ritual, a way to leave behind a clean slate. My passport and boarding pass lay neatly on the kitchen counter, like sacred artifacts awaiting their purpose. The phone rang. Sophie. Marcus's friend, never really mine. She thrived on drama, and I knew exactly why she was calling. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something inside me wanted to hear the script play out. Adriana, she started, her tone sharp and accusing. You need to call Marcus. He's a mess. A complete mess. What you're doing to him is cruel. I nearly laughed. What I'm doing to him? He made a mistake, she pressed on. A big, stupid mistake. But he's devastated. And the Adriana I knew, she'd have compassion. She wouldn't just abandon him. I let her words hang in the air, then answered with calm that surprised even me. The Adriana you knew, I said, voice steady, was plan B. She doesn't live here anymore. Sophie sputtered, but I ended the call before she could reply. The message would get back to him. That night, just as I was folding the last scarf into my suitcase, a frantic pounding rattled my door. I didn't need to check the peephole, I knew. Marcus stood on the threshold, hair disheveled face, blotchy from tears. He looked nothing like the polished man who had walked out weeks ago. This was someone smaller, stripped bare. Adriana, he gasped, his voice cracking. Please, why won't you answer me? I was stupid blind. Nancy used me. You're my rock. The only real thing I've ever had. Can we just... His voice broke into a sob. Can we just forget this ever happened? He reached for me with trembling hands. I didn't move. didn't soften. I simply looked at him, not with anger, not even with pity, but with the detached clarity of someone observing a storm from behind glass. Forget, I repeated, shaking my head slowly. No, Marcus. That conversation the night you told me I was your safety net was the most important one we ever had, because it set me free. His eyes darted past me, landing on the suitcase by the door, his face crumpled hope collapsing into panic. Where are you going? I picked up the boarding pass from the counter and held it up, the destination clear in bold black letters. The flight was less than 10 hours away. You asked me once, I said quietly, if I'd take you back if things didn't work out with her. I paused, letting the weight of the moment hang. They didn't work out, and my answer is no. The flicker of hope in his eyes shattered. In its place came rage, pure, unfiltered. You're a heartless bitch, he spat, voice trembling with venom. Cold. Pathetic. You were never the woman I thought you were. I met his fury with stillness. No, Marcus. I'm exactly who you told me I was the one who plays it safe. And right now, the safest thing for me is to get as far away from you as possible. The door closed between us. Not slammed, but sealed. The sound was final, like a vault locking shut. Inside the apartment was silent again. But this silence was different. It wasn't heavy. It wasn't haunted. It was mine. Morning arrived quietly, sunlight spilling through the blinds, as if the world itself wanted to keep me steady. My suitcase waited by the door, my passport tucked safely into my bag. The taxi ride to the airport felt surreal, familiar streets slipping past the window, shrinking pieces of a life I was leaving behind. The closer we drew to the terminal, the lighter my chest felt, as though every mile was peeling Marcus's shadow off my skin. At security, I moved through the motions boarding pass, passport shoes in a tray, calm, almost ritualistic. Each step was a release. By the time I reached my gate, the weight that had anchored me for months was gone. The plane lifted engines, roaring as the city below dissolved into patchwork. I pressed my forehead to the cool glass, watching the skyline shrink. Somewhere down there, Marcus was pacing, raging, or sulking. His story would continue without me, but for the first time I truly believed I wasn't in it anymore. I leaned back in my seat, breathing deeply. There were no tears, no pangs of regret, only a steady hum of clarity. He had been right about one thing. Nancy was an adventure, but not the one he thought. She was the adventure that revealed the truth, that I was worth more than being a consolation prize, more than being someone's safety net. And for that, I supposed I owed them both thanks. The cabin filled with warm light as the plane banked west, chasing the sun. I closed my eyes, not to sleep, but to savor the profound peace of my own irreplaceable company. For the first time in a long time, being just Adriana Cole felt like everything I needed. And the game I never agreed to play, it was over. Mine was just beginning.